Mikey, I think we're live. I may be
Well,
wrong.
that's no good. I have nothing prepared. Well, I
I
can
haven't either.
dance.
I've got it's just me and a bottle of
Oh dear. What is that?
that is Chobani coffee cold brew.
Well, Mikey's drinking his own self-made latte this morning.
Oh, that's a nice thing. This is I was gonna make a banana chocolate, no, banana coffee shake before the show, but my before the show, unfortunately, this morning became like 30 seconds, as I realized that it was
Time.
time.
Did you
Sometimes,
did you
as
not
you
spring
well know, I
ahead?
lose track of things like time.
Did you spring ahead or fall back or any of that stuff?
I did something.
The
Somehow.
thing to do if you're not sure is just go for a half hour. Spring ahead for a half hour. You can't be that far off.
Well, Mikey, it's interesting. I have this little,
By the way, do you hear the echo that I'm hearing?
you know what? I don't hear it, but I know what it is, and I'm going to fix it right now because I did put my headphones in,
There we go.
which
It's reassuring. Oh, there it goes.
actually, um, now, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I hear you beautifully.
Beautiful. See, there you go. In my rush to get everything done, um, to get the show on the air, I actually contemplated doing this show with no pants on. That's how close it came.
As far as we're concerned, that is exactly what you have done, and there's no way for us to check it. So please enjoy the freedom that comes with wearing no pants.
Well, I could. There is a way you could check it. It would involve me standing up. But anyway, let me finish my quick story here. I have this clock that I've had for years. I mean, I bought this. I'll tell you how old the clock is. It's a Radio Shack timer. And when I started doing the when I started at Cairo, I bought this because they didn't have a broadcast clock in their kit, their remote kit. At the time, you had to carry with you, I forget what they comm line and mics and this and that and everything to do a remote. So Kevin Kremen, our producer engineer, told me, "Well, get one of these. It's a little Radio Shack clock." And the reason I
And,
know it's
and
daylight savings time is because the clock is right. Because I've forgotten how to set the clock.
so it's wrong half the year.
So half the year it says, see now it says 10:26:50, which is probably still wrong by a minute or so because
It's
I've
close,
changed
but that's
the
not. We're
right.
getting up
Not
to 10:30.
it's not exactly broadcast time, but it's a great little clock, and it's how because many times you'll see me leaning over like this during the show, and that's because I'm trying to see the clock, which lit screen has faded long ago. So, but it's a piece of my radio history, and it's a piece of Radio Shack history. I
It's not a.
suspect.
It's not, remember, Radio Shack used to sell Casio keyboards,
Yes. Oh yeah. And
like all the little things for the geekheads everywhere, and then just for no particular reason and with no other instruments provided, the Casio keyboard.
it was. I remember they had electronic drum sets because I wanted to buy an electronic drum set.
Roland, get a Roland. It costs you about 1,500, but that's the name of the
Yeah,
brand.
well, that's a ship that's kind of sailed in my life. I thought at one time I would be a drummer, but I that ship has kind of gone. So, who do I hear in the background? I hear a little.
That's Tomas, the polydactyl cat, who's making a plea to go through the door that's been closed to him this morning because he was rude and he got put out by his mom. And
Ah,
Tomas and his brother Puna, would rather be with Kristen than with anybody else on the planet. They adore her. It's not an even relationship whatsoever. I'm the little man who does the poop and feeds them. She is the queen of the domicile, the reason for their existence, the object of their adoration, and they dote on her. And they will, if they're not touching mom, They're not touching Kristen. They don't think that they are truly cats.
But in that little description there, you probably have hit on the key to a successful marriage, right? I mean, you guys have been. How long you guys been married? You guys been married for like 40 years, right?
We're 39.
So yeah, and it's amazing to me because in the time you've been married, 39 years, I've been married 3 times. I did get to 10 years on one.
Why
Uh,
didn't Kevin Crimmins give you some advice you could use? He told you to
right?
get the clock that you can't read and that won't set half the year, but he didn't give you the advice that you needed.
Well, he's another guy. He's been married, if not 40 years, pretty damn close to it. And, and that wonderful part of life, for whatever reason, has eluded me. And I don't think I'll get the chance to be married 40 years.
The bright
Uh,
elusive butterfly of the electronic drum machine.
yes, the bright elusive butterfly of, but it's sage advice. I mean, you clean up the shit, and she's the queen, and that's how it works, right?
That's my job. I have I have shoveled with the best of them, the cat poop of the day.
And you are comfortable in that. There's no like, what am I doing here? Shoveling cat poop. The
Well,
exchange for shoveling the
I've had enough animals in my life. You can't appeal to a cat's better nature to say, "Hey, how about some affection for me? You can sleep. You can come over here. I'm sitting on the couch.
nah.
There's nothing preventing that from happening." No,
Yeah.
if they fight for spots to sleep on her lap.
No, my beautiful sister Marianne, whose birthday it is today, has a
Well,
cat.
Kristen's birthday tomorrow, isn't that
Oh,
it?
is it the fourth?
Wow,
Oh,
yeah.
wow! And it's well, happy birthday, Kristen. And she's on her second cat in the so her first cat passed away, and now she's on this second cat, which is a rescue. They found it in a scissor lift at the airport.
Whoa.
Uh, my brother-in-law works for United Airlines, and they had a scissor lift there, and he was walking by it one day and heard meow, and looked inside, and there was this little white cat. And so they had recently lost their cat less than a year before that, their cat that they had for years. And so he brought it home, figured he'll just, at least get it where it can, function, feed it, and put it in a cage. And they wound up keeping the cat, pure
Of
white
course.
cat. It's the cutest little cat, but this cat's off the walls. It's always bouncing off the walls. But I think they have the same thing going. They've been married. They've been together for 39 years or 38 years, something like that. And he shovels the crap, and she gets the affection.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's unique to you. I think it's just the way the cats are for some reason.
Cats, you say. It didn't take us long to figure out who was in charge here. We're hanging with her.
Yeah,
As for her support staff, that's up to her. We don't get involved.
yeah.
We're,
Dogs will go with anybody who throws a piece of steak at them. You throw a
yep.
piece of meat at a dog, and the dog will go with you. It's just not. They're just not. They
It's
don't think
funny. The
like that.
dogs can be poisoned. They can be misled. They can be fooled. They can be uh, taken down the garden path for all the wrong reasons. But I don't know if cats will do that too. Will cat eat a poisoned meal left out for them for someone who hates cats?
Well, I'm sure. I'm sure that they probably. I don't think they have, unless they smell something that they don't like. Because they do. I mean, you always notice a cat. A cat walks over to the plate before they will eat it. You know, they
These
give it a little
cats
sniff.
that we're discussing, these two big black and white cats, one weighs 22 pounds, one weighs 18 pounds. They're the biggest cats I've ever had. They eat more than any cat I've ever experienced, and I've had pets all my life. And they poop more than any cat I've ever run around with. But one thing that they will do, which I've never experienced before, is walk up to a meal right out of the can and turn up their nose and just walk away. And they will not revisit that decision. Once they've walked, once they ankled on it, there is no power on earth. You have a daughter. Have you ever had to say, "Hey, why don't you wear a da da da?" Yeah, try
Oh
that
yeah.
sometime. Hey, well,
Yeah,
you'd look better if you were wearing them. Oh, really? Well, your opinion is worth absolutely zero to me. So thank you for nothing.
yeah. As a matter of fact, the only thing that gets you is screamed at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been down that road a few times, and yes, it's you wear what you want. That's what it turned into. If I don't like it, I'll walk 2 feet behind you.
You're a cat too. Yeah, you're a cat, and we are the support staff. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's very true. Speaking about cats and things animalistic, what did you think of the Oscars last night?
I thought it was the best one in years. I thought it was the most engaging and emotional of the more recent ones that I can think of. I can't think of another time where they got rolling in a big hurry, and it seemed like the first three awards had everybody in the place weeping
Yeah,
with
yeah.
an emotional reaction to the people who won. And two of them, before the evening was over, had the same story. Uh, Hugh Van Way, the male actor who used to be hotshot for when he was a kid for Roy Raiders of the Lost Ark, won for best supporting actor, and he was talking about how it was to start as a child actor and then get no work, couldn't find work, couldn't get hired, couldn't get auditioned, nothing was coming his way, and the same sort of story happened to Brendan Fraser, who had started with a whiz bang career doing Disney films, and what was this the story of the man from Encino
Encino
Man?
Man, yeah,
Yeah,
which
and
Jimmy Kimmel had the line of the night when he said that unfortunately Paulie Shore, I forget exactly what the line, but he referenced Paulie Shore, who was the star of that movie actually. So that tells you how long ago that was. And yet two of his co-stars are in the audience getting or nominated for Oscars. And where the hell is Paulie Shore today?
where the hell is Pauly Shore? I think
I
that
don't know, Mikey.
Jimmy Kimmel worked with him at KROQ when he was still a disc jockey, part of the morning show there with Kevin and Bean. Anyway, there was the story revisited many times by anyone who's ever worked in Hollywood of not being able to get work. It happened to Frazier. It happened to Hotshot. I should use his actual name, Ku Hui Kwan. And the moral to that story is you can keep going and try to get it, or you can bang your head against the wall for the rest of your life and never get another job. And you can't tell which is going to be your fate in Hollywood.
Right.
It's one or the other, and there's no guarantees except that one or the other will come to visit you, and it doesn't matter who you are. The time will come. Mickey Rooney won a lifetime award, and he in his acceptance speech he said, "When I was 15 years old, I was the number one act in the world. When I was 30 years old, there wasn't a man in this town that would buy me a drink." He said,
Yeah.
"That's what that's my career. That's all I can tell you. That happened to me. So I thank you for this award because it's been a long time."
Well, I think that we in radio and television and entertainment, empathize with that because we live very similar lives. Where we can be on the number one morning show in town, in the number one city, one week, and then some guy comes in and decides, or woman, it doesn't make a difference. Somebody comes in and decides that you're not what they like. You're not what they want to hear. Doesn't matter what your ratings are. Doesn't matter what your, how much revenue you're bringing in for a station. Doesn't matter. If they don't like you or for some reason they feel threatened by you, which I think a lot of times is much more what it is, you're out the front door. And
Or any door that's handy.
or
Any door
yeah,
will do.
matter of fact, they like you to leave by the back door so nobody sees you.
Or because they fixed it so they can't hear you, but they don't want you to be seen either.
They don't want you to be seen. Matter of fact, they've written a little thing into your contract, which is proven to be unenforceable now, but we had to live with for years, which is known as the non-compete clause. So at least an actor can go out and get another job if one happens to be there for them.
And it took
We
forever to get
were,
that took forever to get that clause reduced to ashes because it provided for I'm your boss, I'm firing you so you can't work for me. I'm preventing you from
Right.
working for anybody else.
One of the most unfair clauses, one of the most unfair conditions of employment ever, ever. And the amazing thing to me was it crept down into the not just the entertainment world, but there were people who were signing contracts at McDonald's to work for
No,
a fast food place. And we're told that you can't, if we fire you, you can't go to Burger King. I mean,
I mean this is
WTF, man.
not only that. This is before any of that has happened. They're legislating ways to prevent you from doing something you've never done and may never
Right,
do. But the one thing that's certain is the if we fire you, don't, I think that's phrased inaccurately. It's when we fire you.
right. Because, like a baseball manager, you are hired, when you work in radio or television, you're hired to be fired.
That's right. At someone else's pleasure. And they
Right.
may get more pleasure from firing you than hiring you.
It's the one business where if you have 3 or 4 firings on your resume, uh, nobody cares because
Nobody
everybody's
even
been
asks.
fired.
Yeah, every one of them.
I don't know anybody in the business. You know, I had actually gone a long time without getting fired. Um, and then
Suddenly,
suddenly,
suddenly one
boom.
day,
Suddenly one day I walked into a conference room, which is, the preferred way of firing.
the GM is sitting with the HR director. They've got a little paper that you must sign.
Right? They want you to sign this paper, and I'm not much for signing papers under pressure. So I say, well, wait, I'm going to have my lawyer or my agent or somebody look at it and see exactly what I'm signing here before I sign it. And they don't like that.
No, they don't like that. I told them that I had to have my cat take a look at it.
Yeah, they that's a no-no because what that'll do is make sure that you don't work for that company ever again, or at least while people that have memories are working there. Um,
I signed once that I was forced to sign as Mr. Machiavelli.
I like that, and you know what? That's a pure Michael Knight thing. I could see you doing that exact thing and telling him as you were leaving the room.
No, I didn't tell him.
Oh, you didn't?
Nope.
I've signed things as Mo Howard. John Lennon is usually my preferred. I've signed a million. When you go to a place and they have a guest book there,
Oh yes.
and they ask you to sign it. I've signed a million of those as John Lennon in New York City. Um, so I don't know. It's always an interesting thing to me. But yes, the Oscars. I mean, I haven't seen everything all over the place.
Everything everywhere all the time, all at once.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I will make it a point to see it this week. And I did see Top Gun. I'm glad that movie won at least something. Um, I
Sound mixing.
Yeah, sound mixing. Which I mean, like I said, I haven't seen all the movies. I the Banshees. I have a problem with the movie. I'm not a great fan of that movie, although I acknowledge what it did. It did what it was supposed to do, is take you on an emotional
Well, they're a
roller
great
coaster.
pair. They're just a great Irish pair.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much charm and experience there.
And I love the Irish. As much as I always talk about my Italian side, I don't talk much about my Irish side, which is half of me. And I so enjoy some of those stories of Ireland and of the situations that arise out of living in a country that, if I had lived there in my youth, would have been a war-torn place that bombs were going off all the time.
There was this thing with the British Empire,
Yeah,
and it turns out that not everybody wanted to be a part of it.
isn't that funny?
If you remember in the movie Gandhi, Gandhi tells he's in court and they're going to put him away for one of his infractions, And he said, "What is it you really want?" He says, "I want you to get to leave one day. Just leave." He says, "You can't expect us to leave one day. We're the English Empire. We're not going to just leave one day." And he said, "Yes, in the end, that is exactly what you will do. One day you'll be here, the next day you'll be gone."
Yeah.
And
And
they couldn't envision it themselves until later in their dealings with Mr. Gandhi. But it's simple when you put it that way. It's the same advice that you would give to Vladimir Putin. What do you want me to do? I'm fighting this war the best way I know how. That's your problem. What you have to do is give up and go home. You expect me to just go home?
right.
Yes, in the end, that is what you will do. You'll drive home.
And there's a certain will among people, and the Irish really, it's funny because the Irish really have it, the will to resist, the will to not take the law that's,
You'll,
that's put in front of you, and the Italians don't. I mean, the Italians, for the most part, say, hey, I don't know if it's the
we're gonna
rain, if it's
we're
the
gonna do what we're
sod.
doing. We're gonna do what we're gonna do, and that's what we're gonna do. And we've already started doing it.
Yeah, or, who cares if there's 45 governments since World War II? The government, as long as the trains run on time,
We taught
you
the
know,
world how to eat.
as long as we can go to the corner and get an espresso, but don't try it after, don't order a cappuccino after 11 o'clock in the morning. As long as we can do those things, um, everything else, who cares?
We had a big government and that ruled the world, and what did we get out of it?
We got nothing. We got ridiculed. We had a bunch of guys running around in dresses, which which would have infuriated the Republicans, but
And they
certainly,
left the gate open.
yeah,
I pointed that out many times. The Vandals and the undeveloped tribes of Germany, France, and other parts of Europe didn't have to scale the wall. The Romans very obligingly left the front gate open,
well,
and
that's what
they walked
happens when
right in.
you think that you're invulnerable, right? You get this idea in your head that nobody can um, do anything to us. We are infallible. We know everything. We control everything, and then you find out that human nature just really says that you don't control everything. As a matter of fact, you control nothing.
In fact, there was a very special law that's become part of our nomenclature, but part of our way of talking about people who have gone too far. When they've crossed the Rubicon, there's no going back. It's like beyond the pale.
Right.
And the Rubicon, many people don't know, but Vinnie, you're Italian, so you do know it's a river.
Yeah.
And it was a river in the north of Italy, which no Italian legion could cross. Italy, it was very smart. The Romans kept their armies out of Italy, out of the peninsula. They didn't want them wandering around doing things that armies do. So you go up there and fight in Spain, you fight in France, you fight in Germania, get back to us is how things are going. But you can't come back here. You got to stay out there, keeping the Huskow full of miscreants. Take care of it, make the peace, make the Roman Pax Romana, but don't come down here. We don't want our army in Italy because that's a dangerous thing. We don't want the army in Rome. And Caesar said, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not just going to cross the Rubicon. I'm coming to town, and I'm bringing the 10th Legion with me. So if you want to talk, that would be the time because we're on our way.
And the other foolish thing about that was that you take your army and you put them where there's water on three sides, and that always represents a problem. I think
And
the page one in the general's handbook says don't get stuck on a peninsula.
he was a leader, but he was not a good general.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it becomes increasingly like nowadays you have a navy, but in those days, I mean, you had a navy, but they had to build the boats. They had to find big trees to carve out the innards so that they could get 35 guys into a boat and head across to either the other part of Europe or to Africa,
And
which
had to get over there and make sure the Egyptians were doing what they were told.
yeah, I mean, people forget that the Italian Empire, as it was largely concentrated in places like northern Africa, where they ruled Ethiopia and Tunisia and
Carthage.
Carthage and many of those places that were easily accessible if you had 25 guys in a boat rowing.
And then they lost it all, except for the Eastern Empire, which is kind of funny because you couldn't probably find five people in Rome that knew where Constantinople was. Where is it? Uh, that way?
Yeah,
You
go down
go
that
you,
road.
you go to Torino and hang a right. That's the best highway. I always try that one, but my wife likes the low road.
Right. She's an Appian Way fan. She likes to,
Yeah,
you know,
and it's a
go
nice
that
way,
road.
the Appian Way. It's a beautiful
It,
way.
it's proven to be a great way, but it's the Appian Way. Um,
Or the highway. You got your choice: the Appian
yeah,
Way
you
or the
can take
highway.
the Appian Way or the highway, whatever you wanna take. So anyway, the Oscars were. I thought Kimmel did a great job
I did
uh,
too.
moving that thing along. He's so grown on me the last couple of years, really since the pandemic. I hardly watched him before the pandemic, and I'm not the biggest Stephen Colbert fan, and I'm not the biggest Jimmy Fallon fan. Both of those guys seem to me to be they want to be the star of their shows, where the type of show that they do, you're supposed to set other people up to be the stars.
Right.
That's what was so great about Letterman, so great about Carson, so great about that type, the great talk show hosts, is they set other people up to be the stars of the show. They would just there to ask the questions and keep the thing moving, keep it moving.
Unless you were Jack Parr, in which case you were the star and more temperamental than any of the other stars.
Yeah, that was that. But again, how long did Jack Parr last?
He quit
Um,
twice, I think.
yeah, I think he did. And matter of fact, he walked out. They brought him back, and he walked out again.
He had had so much fun the first time. Plus, the door's always there when
He
you have
didn't
a
have a
problem.
non-compete clause.
No,
Um, so I believe. I mean, this is again my thing. Now I know that's changed a bit with Letterman, but the way Letterman did it was in a subtle way that he again set other people up to be, by just being kind of the bimbo running it all. He kind of became a star. He had great skits and great writers and all of that stuff that they used to do. Um, you
and
don't.
he had an attitude that he used to do everything, all the simple stuff.
Yeah,
Reading what was happening when the movie's opening, who's coming up next, what Paul's doing, what the band was up to. He was snarky and it rubbed some people the wrong way, but I like the fact that he was too cool to be easily acceptable as just your regular host. He had to have an attitude that went with it.
yeah, and Kimmel doesn't have the attitude, but he has that sense to set other people up to be stars,
Well,
to shine on his show.
he's got this wonderful self-depreciating humor that works for him.
Yeah,
Like all the promos that they did with John Hamm that the ABC was running prior to the Oscars, where Jimmy had to justify the choices he was making to his superior officer. It just was pretty funny. And then they hated all his ideas. They hated all the stuff that he was going to do. They hated him. They only got him because they had tried a lot of people and they couldn't get him. And he said, "How many people did you try?" And they said, "A lot." Before we finally got you. You were not our first choice, and you were not our third or our fifth choice.
yeah. No, I think he came out. He handled it well. He had. I thought the parachuting onto the stage thing at the beginning was priceless. Um, and I think that he satired people, he made fun of
Okay.
people, but he didn't do it in a mean or harmful kind of way.
Some people took exception to the Robert Blake line. I don't know if you heard that.
I thought maybe that was his bomb of the night. But the same people who took exception to the Robert Blake line were also people that probably wouldn't have invited Robert Blake over to their house for dinner.
No, no. I'll meet you at Smokies in the Valley. No, no.
Yeah. As I said on Friday show, I didn't even realize that Robert Blake. I thought he was dead already.
I know what you feel. I know what you mean about that.
Yeah,
And
he was my modern Abe Vigoda. Where you just think the guy is gone, and
I thought
you're
that Bud Grant was dead, but he died this weekend. The head coach of the Minnesota
the
Vikings.
Vikings. Yeah,
When Mother Nature made them play outdoors in the winter. Oh God.
yeah, it was. Yeah, it's always weird when you see that somebody's died that you thought was dead already. It's always kind of, I don't know, creepy.
Getting a head start on death.
Yeah, well, you're not dead. Yeah, I know. Who said I was? Well, my mind. No, don't believe your mind. Your mind plays
Yeah.
tricks on you.
Everybody said you were dead. Who? Well, me.
At the club, yeah, me.
Yeah.
I thought you were dead. Okay, I'm the only idiot that realized that that wasn't you going through the drive-through.
What killed
But
him was the new rules in baseball. That's what put. And you would think that he wouldn't care about them. He'd be more concerned about football. But when he read the summation of new rules for baseball, that weakened him to a point where he could not fight the the lingering feeling he had about. I think if these are the rules that baseball is going to be using, this is not a planet for me.
what what is the one rule that you don't like?
The timing clock thing doesn't seem
The
to work
pitch
at
clock.
all. The pitch clock. It's just
Yeah,
we're getting unintended consequences. We wanted the game to move quicker. Instead, the game slows down as we're trying to figure out. Did you call that a strike or what? Well, I was just standing here. I didn't get 15 seconds. Where's the clock? I can't see it. Where's your version of it? You said that I could. You said I could stand here. I called time. You got time, but time's up now. In fact, you're out. I'm out. I didn't even get a pitch. No, that's not how it works anymore.
yeah. See. I don't like anything that limits or puts a timer on a game that's supposed to be untimed. Part of the beauty of baseball is that it's not timed. Is that it's left up to a discretion of the umpire, of the police force, of the game. That's who the timing is left up to. But there's no set timing. I mean, I couldn't. Could you imagine Bob Gibson trying to work with a pitch clock or
What I
Don
what,
Drysdale?
what I like the fact is that the umpires are going to have great trouble coming to grips with this because it's not. It doesn't make sense. Nobody's done anything, and yet something happened. Well, if we didn't do anything, the pitcher didn't do anything. I'm the batter. I didn't do anything. What happened? The time clock. What? It's ball two. You got to be. We didn't. But wait, aren't I up here to compete against him instead of competing against the clock?
Well, that's it. The competition is against two people, with all these other people standing around to watch it until the one of the people do something that involves the other people.
It's like to make the game go faster. You have somebody standing on the sidelines who can call timeout. Timeout. Hold everything. Wait, we're trying to play faster. No, no, no. Let me talk.
Again, the game would go faster if you didn't have 9 million commercials in the game. If you weren't sitting there telling everybody, well, this is sponsored by and that's sponsored, and the first pitch is sponsored by and this and that. Yeah. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't have the problems that you have.
There are a lot of sponsorship problems now. I know here in town, KNX has sponsored the newsroom broadcast booth. So traffic comes to you from one spot that's sponsored, but the news comes from the broadcast booth, and that's sold to BMW, whoever wants to buy it. Jimmy Dean Sausages. It's the
Right, and
Jimmy
we
Dean Sausage broadcast booth here in Los Angeles.
and we all notice the same booth. It's the same.
It's been the same, and we know what's in there more too. How many chairs? Three. How many do you are broken? Three.
Three. I mean, we had to plead for chairs when we were on the air at KJR. We had to get an outside person to come in and bring us chairs.
They weren't going to come from inside. You got your choice. There's always a back room in a radio station with broken chairs and desks that nobody wants.
That
And
the engineers will get to one day.
they're going to get to it. They're going to work on that as soon as they fix the transmitter.
Yeah. Someday we'll get to it. Don't worry. It's the only place where you can go and you can sit. And, when you get there on the first day, you get a chair with stains and it's broken.
And it's only going to get worse. You were never going to see a new chair to take that chair's place, but it will get worse.
The only time you get new chairs, and even then you probably don't get new chairs, they probably buy them from some other radio station to change formats into the new chairless format, where nobody sits down while we're talking. We're stand-up radio. That's that's how
That
they
is
do it in Slovakia.
that was a revolution when they had stand-up boards. It was like, this is going to change everything. Yeah, it makes you tired. It makes you sit on a high stool instead of a low stool.
Well,
And the high stool, by the way, is just as broken as the low one.
yeah, they never figured that out. And the worst thing in the world to sit in is a high stool.
Oh
The
yeah,
bearings are shot. It's moving this way because what they never take into account is many, 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 many people in radio are truly larger than life. And you can weigh it. There's more of me's than you's in radio stations. All of that free food that gets brought in
used to
from
be.
who knows where, has an effect on people.
These are the things that are true about radio everywhere you go. You go to Des Moines, the chairs are broken. The morning guy is going to break more because it's his nature. It's his nature to do it that way. The morning zoo breaks chairs every day.
Yeah, that's because every week they have the parking lot chair races.
Ooh, those can be fun. But if you're in a stand-up board, then you got the tall stool. You're gonna have trouble standing that one.
Remember,
That's like
I don't know if you remember the at KJR we did the Bobby Knight chair throwing contest.
I don't remember that, but it sounds right.
Maybe that's when I was doing evenings. Maybe that was after you were gone. But we did and the place you would have to do something like that was in Tacoma on a remote. So we were in a parking lot at a sports bar in Tacoma, and we had people throwing chairs.
Folding chairs.
Yeah, just throwing them to see how far you could chuck one. And I think the winner got a case of Molson or something like that. I don't know. We always
Did
seem to have.
anybody do it the old-fashioned way? You spin around like you're throwing a shot put.
Yeah, there was various and sundry ways of chucking a chair, from the chuck it to the spinning, the whirling dervish toss to the push. And then I saw one guy with a matter of fact, this guy might have been one of the furthest chuckers of the chair with one arm and just momentum,
Wow.
just chucking it. But the guy had arms like our late friend Willie Austin.
Willie had a pair of arms. That's for
Willie
that's
had
for sure.
arms, yeah. I mean, Willie had arms,
Well,
and
one thing that I can't figure out is how Bobby Knight lasted so long because I was not a, although we had the same last name, we weren't related, but there was something dark and unwelcoming about him. There was something, I know the fans loved him and
yeah.
the team feared him. But did anybody like him or think that they couldn't do better with a real coach instead of a madman who couldn't control his temper?
Well, you could make a case to say that Indiana has not done as well as they did back in the '80s since Bobby Knight was forced to depart.
Well, that's karma. There you go.
You know, I have several friends that are Indiana fans, and to a person, they will, say that Knight had the best ideas of coaching, the best way of coaching, that he got more out of his players than any other coach that they've had. I don't know that that's true. I don't follow that program closely enough to know, but I do know that people in Indiana love the guy, or people that went to school there for the most part. I guess unless you played for him.
Well, then Indiana produces two types of people: Mike Pence, who hasn't got enough backbone to sit in a upright chair, even a disc jockey chair with broken bearings, or Bobby Knight, who just throws the chair in a form of salutation.
Well,
I see you and I greet you with a chair through the air.
I think that's unfair though, Michael, because Indiana also produced Dave Niehaus. You know,
Okay,
yeah,
he's the white rabbit out of the hat.
to
He's the magician's trick. There's aren't going to be two of those.
yeah, he I don't recall now. Maybe this was something that he did in his earlier days, but I don't ever remember him throwing a chair out of a broadcast booth.
I can't see that.
I you know I guess anyone is capable, but it just didn't seem that Dave was capable of doing something like that.
Plus, Dave Niehaus' job was to call the game, and he did a beautiful job, a unique job of doing it that way, and people loved him for it. And so he would see it and call it. Bobby Knight would see what was happening and rebel against it. He was fighting not himself, he was fighting reality. He couldn't bear losing, he couldn't bear incompetence, he couldn't bear people who weren't in his mind equal to the task.
Yeah.
And he was physically threatening to them because they weren't going to say anything about the coach.
Well, that's what crossed the line. That's the
And that's
thing that
right.
crossed the line with Knight is that he had gotten to a point where he felt that he could inject physicality into his act, and at a time when 10 years before that he could have, and everybody would have just went, "Oh, that's Bobby Knight." But when he went off that pier, went off that deep end, the shift of, well, you don't put your hands on people, had already started, especially kids, especially if you're a coach.
But he'd been talking to his players while he had them by the shirt for a long time.
Right, right. But I mean, even did it to his kid in front of. I mean, how would you feel to be your father? Here's your father grabbing you by your shirt collar in front of 30,000 people in a coliseum.
Who love him and but are not quite sure about you.
Right. Who say you're a screwed up kid, man. You're not listening to Bobby Knight. We all listen to what Bobby says, and Bobby we trust.
He's your dad. Pay attention.
Pay attention. He straightened out my son.
Yeah, he won't play basketball anymore.
Yeah, my son was a car thief before he ran into Bobby Knight.
Now he steals furniture from people's homes.
He steals
He,
trucks. He moved
yeah.
up. we saw him down at the Volvo dealership just a couple hours ago.
Comes in and he puts on his overalls and says, "Here to pick up the car." All right. And bring it back when you can.
Oh my lord, man! So are you going to now? Do you get crazed out at this time of year? Do you get into the whole March Madness thing?
I'm going to this year. I don't always. I usually wait till the last round so I can see some great basketball. And often Gonzaga is involved, and I'm a supporter of the Zags. I like their brand of basketball. I like their team. I like their people. I like their international recruiting. I like a program that is so dramatically, demonstrably, obviously different from every other major program in the way they go around the world to find their players who are clamoring to play for the Bulldogs. And there's just something magical, and everyone knows how I've criticized the Jesuits over the years. Well, they got one right. They did something right, and they've had their ups and downs. They win, they lose, but they are one of the premier programs in the nation. And I wish them all the luck in the madness that will be March. It's crazy. You don't have to tell them what to do because you can't lose. What do we do? Well, you better win, or you won't have to worry about what to do.
Yeah, for it's funny because I've always looked at college basketball and I realize, now I'm a child of the point shaving schemes at City University in the 50s and the 60s. So there's always been something suspect about college basketball to me. But the tournament has always been this great thing that happens across America that seems to bring people together, unite them in a common type of situation, and also it's the maybe the greatest breaking of the law. Although now sports gambling is more and more becoming legal in many places, but up until a couple of years ago, grandma was filling out a bracket and attaching her $5 to it
The
and
nuns,
giving it
yeah,
to.
the nuns in Des Moines have got a grand on the game.
Right, right. Everybody seemed to have to not fear putting $5 on their bracket with some salty character that you know last week was at the Volvo dealership with overalls on.
Actually, you know perfectly well at radio stations, the bracketology is run by the sales department because they handle the money.
Right, right. Yeah, there was always a
It's not like the general manager or the chief engineer or the news director is going to run the bracketology. No, sales department.
yeah. There's yeah. The sales department gets to do everything cool, right? Or they get to authorize
I
everything
had a thought
cool.
about this. You've worked in sales and you worked as talent,
Right.
more talent than sales, but you've had the experience firsthand instead of just witnessing it like me, like I do. Go back to the greatest radio stations of all time. You can pick any one you want: WABC, KFRC, KSFO, KMPC. It doesn't matter which one you choose. Was that station a success because the business plan and the sales department and the general manager were the crafty masters of finance? Or was that station number one because it had the best damn talent in town and used that talent as a weapon to fend off all pretenders? I have my feelings about that, but I wonder what you think.
I think that there's two ways you judge a radio station, Mikey. You judge it by ratings and you judge it by revenue. If you are on broadcast on the programming side, you judge it by ratings, right? If you are on the sales side, you judge it by revenue. A perfect example is the city. When we were at the city together, the city didn't have the numbers that it had, but the format was designed to be able to go out and sell that format to people who, while you didn't have maybe uh, the number of people that would make up a KGO, and that where you had to be on that station. You had enough people that loved the station because of the programming and the jocks and everybody that you could go out and sell that to people.
It was unique, like sports radio is unique.
Right, right. Like right. Sports radio stations in their markets usually aren't the top rated radio stations, but they are among the top billing radio stations because you have creative people who come up with different types of promotions and revenue increasing programs that will get people to spend more money on that station than the
Money.
ratings justify.
Right.
So I always think they work hand in hand. Is you have to create compelling programming, and then you have to have people that have a good enough line of crap to be able to go out there and get their foot in the door of the people who buy on ratings and say, "Wait, I have something different for you here."
And that's a good story to tell. This is not about the ratings. This is more about the people who are attracted to the format. And we're only a
Right.
year old. In 3 years, our market share is going to be dramatically different than it is now. And you're going to get in on the ground floor. I'm going to say, in fact, that I'm going to make you a deal that'll last for 3 years. That's not the truth, but it's what I'm going to say. So
Right.
get used to me saying things that don't come true.
Right. Because people, um, uh, you know, radio is so much the same everywhere that when you come up upon a station that's different, that's unique, and that the people that buy media listen to, they always seem to be able to find a place to put a few $1,000s in for you. So you have to work harder. You have to know your client better. But I think that somebody that does a creative job at a radio station of putting a unique format on the air will benefit from that. Now,
And you gotta walk in with a story. If you have a
right,
format that hasn't yet cracked the market, but is a new format and very effective and attracting an audience, then you've got to be able to show our audience responds to what we do. Our audience comes to our events. Our audience is on the phone. Our audience is in contact. We've kept track of all the new people listening to the radio station. We know how old they are, male, female, whether they live in San Leandro or Hayward. We know where they're from. We know what their demographic is about. We're painting a picture for it, and I can show you that if you're interested in it.
well, that's where going back to the city for a minute, that's where the city was able to make its bones when we got something called the city card, which was this little card. Every radio station has them now, but it was an affinity program for radio listeners, and it was a way that we could quantify and qualify our type of listener. We knew who our listener was because we had their name and we had their age and we had where they bought and we had their responses to different things that we did. And when you have that, when you can lay that out for somebody and in a believable fashion, you wind up getting on buys that would have that helped the radio station along. If the city had been allowed to exist another year,
Yeah.
it never would have been the number one radio station in town, but it would have been one of the top billing radio stations in town.
It would have been a permanent fixture. It would have been an
Right,
important part of the mix.
right. It would have been
And
a what do you call it? A KSFX or what was the 98 9 KMP? No, not KMPC. KMPX, I think it was. That it was there when I got to town. It was a station that, while it wasn't a mass audience, it was a K Jazz. It would have been a K Jazz. K Jazz was a station that had 1.2 rating, but yet people would call you up to get on K Jazz because the programming was so compelling and so unique, and that you could come up with a profile of the listener of K Jazz. It was the listener that everybody wanted.
it's funny that that type of radio station, sometimes classical radio stations, sometimes jazz stations, have that unique audience. And you'd think that it would be easy to recreate it elsewhere. And the reason that it's not easy to create that type of talent and mix and sound is because you need the individual, you need that person standing there behind the mic, making decisions that can't be made by a computer. And they have to be welcome to the listener. If, um, if the computer at the rock station across town doesn't have bad company in it or little feet, then my way to my audience is clear. I'm playing Feel Like Making Love and Rock and Roll Doctor back to back because I can play something that they can't.
Right.
And that gives me a weapon that they cannot possess, and it works against them every day that I can play music against theirs.
Well, that was the beauty of the city. It was the last radio station that I ever remember that wasn't a non-commercial station that you
Right.
could bring records from home
Good
and
record.
play. You could bring something in on and put it into the mix, and when people heard that kind of stuff, it formed a unique relationship between the listener and the station. And that's what's missing from radio today is that relationship between the listener and the station. Um, if you're listening to music radio, you're going to hear songs that have been researched out the butt. It's all research. Well, research says that we should play this, and research says that we should play that, and research says this, and look at how many hits this is getting on Spotify and all this kind of stuff.
And that's considered out the butt.
Yeah, that's considered out the butt. Um, but you don't have many stations that say to their air staff, "What do you think we should be playing? What's the word on the street? What are you hearing? You're out in the clubs. You go out and talk to people. You're eating in the diners. What are people talking about?" It's like, and that's one thing that the city was really good at. Was really good at knowing who our audience was and how to reach them. What type of music? What type of talk would reach them? Would that they would gussy up to? That they would feel like they were friendly with?
And it takes time to build that. That's one thing that radio doesn't do any longer. It doesn't have the sense to know that a new product needs 3 years because of the listening habits of the people. When you get in the car, more now than ever, you probably are stuck on one station, one or two stations, whether it's Sirius XM or whether it's the college station. My number one station is the college station in Cal State Northridge.
Yeah.
KCSN, the SoCal sound. I know that's a mouthful, but they're sticking with it.
Yeah, we have KEXP here,
Yeah, it's a good station.
which is a great station. It is funded by the estate of Paul Allen. Paul Allen bought that station, and so it would stay non-commercial. And there's a board of directors and stuff that run that place. And it's what a successful mark of a radio station is when you see it in dating profiles.
Wow.
When you look at a dating profile and it says, well, they have usually this list of things that people like. And many times you will look at a dating profile and the woman will have, or the man will have KEXP in there as something they like. It becomes an identifier
Yes.
for somebody, a part of your personality. I'm like this because I listen to KEXP.
I listen to Rush Limbaugh every day, and I yell when he yells. I'm part of his crew. Then you know about that person. Now you know more about that date than you did before.
If
Now
you're on
going out with
a
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
yeah, if you're on a Republican dating site, that's probably I miss Rush Limbaugh would be your
Do they have those Republican dating sites?
uh, uh you know I don't need to see that. If they do or they don't, it's just something that I know they have liberal ones. I know they have. There's a couple of different liberal ones.
And the one for the farmer. There's a farmer's life. Or
Yeah,
how to get a
yeah,
farmer's
yeah.
life.
There's a farm. Yeah, I think there's one for everything. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a some kind of Republican, right wing, maybe even a QAnon uh, dating website.
So those people would not be watching everything everywhere all at once because the directors were gay, the cast was Asian, the story was science fiction, and it shows about the dysfunctional world that we live in and how your fingers can turn into hot dogs if you're not careful.
Yeah, uh, yeah, probably not on there. Probably not a good first date for
QAnon, yeah.
the QAnon dating. But I think those people would rather sit in a bar and complain about how Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't get the media coverage that she justly deserves.
No, she's going to get it someday, and it's just what she deserves.
I don't know. I you know, you know me. I peruse YouTube all the time, and for anybody who's interested, I posted over the weekend. There's this guy that I always check out his YouTube channel, The World According to Briggs. And this guy is a researcher, and he comes up with these great top 10, top 5, top 7 lists of all different sorts of things that he can back up with statistics. What are the most racist cities in the country? What are the most non-racist cities in the country? What are the best places to live for retirement? What's the best place to? He just has a myriad of great lists that he puts together, and then he qualifies them. I mean, he comes on and says, "Well, this is why this works out like this. I use this index." He cites his research, and he did a video over the weekend, maybe he did it last Friday, of what the top 10 things that would be different if America divorced, which is now the newest cry of Marjorie Taylor dumbass.
Oh, not a civil war, just a divorce.
Just a divorce. Blue states go your way, red states go your way, and if you're undecided, we'll split you down the middle. That kind of stuff. And it's
My
really,
advice for the red states would be you go your way, but my advice would also be do not turn your back.
yeah. Don't come back and look at us. Don't ask us to come back. But the video was done, and the explanation was done really well, and it really pointed out statistically some of the things that would happen depending on where the United States decided to divide itself and how the United States decided to divide itself. And I suggest that anybody who thinks that it's a good idea for, including myself, who I have often been on this show, harking the fact that maybe we all just ought to, let them go their way and we'll go our way. Watch this video and have a better understanding of exactly what that would look like.
And also, we have an experience that we can call upon to see how it works in real time. We had a civil war. We had the dissolution of the Union. We had people coming up with their own ideas about how government should be and how government should not be, and then acting on them to the point of separating from the Union. And that was a pretty serious thing. What we forget about Robert E. Lee is that his actions were those of a traitor.
Right.
And he wasn't just dissenting; he was at war with himself. He was separating all that we had from itself. He was taking the Union apart. There's not two Slovakias. There's just one. Now, maybe you don't like Slovakia the way it is. Dividing it into two Slovakias is not a good solution. We've seen that over and over again. And we also see the fact that countries that start civil wars, and I've mentioned this before, don't ever stop fighting them because somebody is going to be upset with the way it came out. The loser, of course, who's never going to be the loser. We didn't lose.
Right.
We didn't lose.
Which is oddly enough the page that Donald Trump seems to continually take out of the political playbook. If the South tells you enough times that we didn't lose the war,
there you go. It looks good to me.
then you're going to believe it.
And a description came up. You were talking about what Donald Trump believes. So much of what he came to believe was helped along by Rudy Giuliani. And there was a special on last night about Rudy Giuliani's life and the change that came between the time between America's mayor and the QAnon nonsense that he's swallowed whole. And it was from Jimmy Breslin, the great New York columnist for Newsday and for the Daily News, who said that Rudy Giuliani reminded him of a small man in search of a balcony. Meaning he was going to make a speech and he was ready to make a speech and he had to make a speech and he would wait if you were using the balcony. He'll take it after you're through with it because he has to make a speech. And
Yeah.
why? Because he's a man needing to stand on the balcony and tell you about himself. more than anything else, he wanted to be your leader. He wanted you to feel safe in his hands. He wanted you to believe his story. He wanted you to follow him into the fire. He wanted you to realize he was going to make everything all right. And what turned out was that we have a hard time reconciling is that Rudy Giuliani, despite his affection for Donald Trump and given all the bad advice that one lawyer can come up with, what he really wanted was for you to believe him.
Right.
I wanted you to believe in his ability to see the future and his ability to read the cards and his ability to come up with a reason to say it's going to be okay. Rudy's got it. When in fact, what he really wanted was just to talk. He wanted you to be listening to his version of events. He just wanted to be the one on the balcony talking to the crowd.
Rudy reminds me of a baseball player that has 2 good years. You know, um, people look at what he did post 9/11, and rightly so. He was the right guy at the right time
For
for
about one
that
day. Yeah.
for that city. People forget conveniently, and this is where I think Trump gets the idea that Rudy called off an election in the city of New York.
Tried to just stay in office.
Tried to just stay in office. I mean, people, you hardly ever hear it mentioned, but using his executive powers as mayor, called off the election for, I don't know, what was it, 6 months, uh, because he was under term limits and couldn't run again.
And he said,
And it was,
this is just temporary. We're just so I can stay in power while we're in this difficult time. But when's it going to be over? Well,
I'll tell you when.
over. What's over? What's over to you? It could be different than what's over to me. So let's talk about that later. When? Well, we'll be visited 6 to 8 months. What do you say? We'll come back. We'll talk. We'll make a decision. Maybe we'll let the people of New York vote on their next mayor. Maybe I'm not going to allow that.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that a little tidbit of Giuliani history, and you're right. He is a guy. You're 100% right. He's a guy, except that senility has now crept into Rudy,
And the
and so,
duty.
and so now you have a guy who doesn't get all the angles that he used to get. Doesn't see all of the vision that he used to have. His vision has been narrowed to, um, what's my legacy going to be? How do I hold on to some of this power I have? And
And there's no answer for him. I mean, he's in the wilderness.
you know, and he's willing to make himself look like a clown, to lie to people, to tell people that things that aren't true, just to keep himself in favor with another guy that's going nowhere. I mean, he latched on to the Trump bandwagon, and
Thought it was
this
going to be the 1,000-year Reich, but no.
this is a guy that couldn't stand Trump. This is a guy that 10 years ago wouldn't eat in the same restaurant that Trump would eat in. But sometimes you do things to preserve yourself.
And his little stories are so weird. Hugo Chavez is dead. He didn't organize anything in Venezuela. He said, well, I didn't realize that. I thought he was still with us. So
Oh,
is Bud Grant dead? No, Bud Grant died this weekend. Okay.
He's dead too. Well, and that's
Here's the thing. So he doubled down. He said, we're sticking with the story. Chavez designed the vote changers. He put it on the satellite. The Germans got it. The Italian army was using it. The Israelis are going to translate it for us. So we got the facts. And Sidney Powell's here, and she says I'm right. So there you go.
that's it. If the diet of a liar is that you can find somebody to not only believe your lies, but to enforce them, to reinforce them. Richard Pryor used to have a great line about liars. He did a bit called "Toodlum at the Barber Shop," and Toodlum was one of his great lines was, "He'd tell lies, and I'd tell lies, and we complement each other's lies." And it's true. If you're going to lie, if you have somebody to lie along with you, well,
Beautiful.
then you start to become believable because, well, it isn't just Rudy saying it; it's Sidney saying it as well.
And although Chavez is dead, he hasn't been dead that long. He may be able to do things after death that other people can't do, like fix voting machines.
Maybe he left the papers with somebody.
You know what was in the papers? All the plans for the Jewish space lasers.
Well, there you go. You see, the crazy part about this stuff is these people lie about stuff that is so easily detectable that, and they can never produce the facts. They can never produce enough fact to stand up in a court of law.
It seems like they believe it, though. Do you believe Sidney Powell actually believes what she's talking about,
Oh yeah,
knowing
yeah,
that
I
it's a
think they
lie? She
believe
believes
it.
it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they design a narrative and then they try to find the facts to fit that narrative. And if they have to bump them a little bit or bang them out a little bit or, you know, punch them up a little bit, well, so be it.
Can't be helped. Cost of doing business.
Rudy Giuliani's finest moment was 9/11, his, and maybe his appearance on Saturday Night Live on the first live Saturday Night Live after 9/11, when he appeared with the firemen and the policemen, and it was a stirring um, testimony to the city of New York
And he
and
was
to
already
Washington.
and he was already at odds with the cops and the firemen over the post 9/11 actions.
He was always at odds with the cops and the firemen. Cops and firemen didn't like Rudy Giuliani. Um, he put them in horrible positions. They were always talking about one thing or another. Rudy was no friend of, he saw the cops and the firemen as beneath him.
Plus, David Dinkins doesn't care about you, but I do. And when I get to be mayor, I'm going to screw you guys both. You're both going to rue the day that I took power because I'm going to put the weight of the recovery of the city on the cops on Monday morning. By Friday morning, I'm going to be decrying your actions as brutal and unhelpful.
Right, right. Yeah. Now Rudy was, like I said, Rudy had a 10-year career and he had 2 good years and I mean, look at how he got destroyed when he ran for president. I mean, he just got destroyed by people that probably were way less qualified
And his
than.
plan was, I just saw this the other night, Vinny. It was an extraordinary plan. No one's ever done it. Instead of running in the primaries, he was just going to run in Florida. He put all his money into Florida and went nowhere else.
Yeah, because he knew he could win down there. He thought he could win down there.
Yeah, but he didn't.
Right. Well, see, part of Rudy's plan is that if you can't win, come up with something. And listen, Rudy Giuliani had some great moments. He single-handedly took on organized crime in the city of New York and got lucky with a guy named Joe Pistone, who was working for the FBI at the time, when Rudy was the lead attorney for the Southern District in New York. And listen, there's a lot of people out there that think, excuse me, that think that Donald Trump was one of his rats.
Hmm.
There's a theory out there among many people that say that Donald Trump was one of the people that informed on these gentlemen of criminality that Trump was the guy who talked about told them who made the payoffs and when they made the payoffs and why they had to buy concrete from a certain guy and why they had to pay off a union official a certain. That Trump was the guy who gave them all this information.
That's a dangerous job coming up with that information. And I hadn't heard that before, but that makes sense.
Well,
And that,
again, it's a rumor. I don't know that there's ever been any substantiated stuff to it. But as we know, those people don't act on substantiation.
plus, those who know don't tell, and those who tell
Right.
do not know.
I mean, we still haven't, we still haven't heard the true story about the Kennedy assassination. And what are we going on to 70 years on that one?
No, we're not comfortable giving you details about that, and even fewer details are available about Jimmy Hoffa, except that his soul is now living in Ron DeSantis. The It wandered the earth for years looking for a suitable home, and now it's got one. He's living in those white go-go boots.
He's he's bopping around the country, man. I mean, worry about him.
Yeah,
Worry about him. Don't take him
and
as lightly as you took Trump,
he's not meeting a lot of resistance right now, none whatsoever.
because he's a smart Trump. He's
Um,
already made woke a curse word, a four-letter word in this country.
to be aware is to be your own enemy. You don't want to be aware. You don't want to know stuff. That's not going to work for you. If you're living in my America, you don't want to be awoke. You want to be slightly dozing off at all times.
The
Just to
stupider
be
you
dozing.
are, the better we like it.
The better I feel about you. I do. I like you better when you're stupid and when you can't make up your mind and when you don't vote and when you uh, warm up to the white supremacist Christian nationalist crap that I've been selling. And I'm not selling it because it's snake oil. I'm selling it because it helps your arthritis. Just rub it on the joint, and
Yep.
here's the Ron DeSantis prayer cloth, so that you can pray to me or pray with me. I'm sorry, did I say to me?
To me. Yeah. Yeah. No, he is what we have talked about, Michael, for a few years. He is the smart Trump.
Boy,
He is the Trump that knows not to say things in public. He's the Trump that knows that when you rip something up, you don't put it in the toilet. You shred it, you burn it. He's the Trump that won't leave the tracks that Trump left because he doesn't believe. Trump believes. Well, I don't care. Nobody's going to do anything to me. He doesn't have that feeling of invulnerability about him.
the thing that DeSantis does and that Trump did in his own way was this self-confidence that is misplaced. It doesn't have any footing. It has a face and it has an attitude and it has the jutting chin. It has the moose. It has all the accoutrement of Mussolini. But there's no there there. It's just talk to make white people angry and wonder what the world holds for them if Ron DeSantis doesn't save them from the great colored hordes that have taken over our country.
Well, Ron DeSantis is your uncle that
The
sits at
Thanksgiving.
the dinner table and complains, or comes over to your house and complains to your father that he can't get a break because they have to hire black people. He can't get a break because the guy that he knew that used to run the construction site retired. Now they have some Spanish guy in there making the decisions, and you don't, he doesn't know you from anybody.
All I wanted was a no show, pay me today job. A no show job is
Yeah,
the most
and
beautiful thing
and
on the planet.
he, there's a lot of people that buy that say that that that's the reason why I'm not getting a job. Not because I showed up to work drunk or I didn't show up at all. or I told my boss that I'm going to leave. I got to go pick up my kid at school, and I don't care what you say, or the myriad of other things that people do, or that I just am crappy at my job. Just that I don't nail Section A and Section B quite together like I should.
I should, but I don't.
I should, but for whatever, I'm too busy on my phone betting the NCAA tournament.
Bet
That's what it's.
responsibly. Remember to bet responsibly. There's no such thing as betting responsibly. That's like telling people to drink responsibly. Oops.
Yeah, yeah. You can't tell. Yeah, I'm sorry. You don't. You just don't tell. You can't. You can't legislate morality.
And remember, don't bet more than you can afford to lose. I'll take that 100. Thank you. So I can't afford to lose more, but I can afford for you to lose more. That's the way this thing is set up. We need suckers. If anybody wants to be the sucker, the game starts in 30 minutes, and here's the spread. What do you say?
Why not?
Sucker.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like you're a cartoon and that big sucker appears, Exactly. You're the Elmer Fudd of suckers. All right, Mikey, we've overstayed our welcome,
That's
but
easy for us to do.
which is easy for us to do. Our aunt said, "Get the hell out" a long time ago, but yet here we are because we're two white guys who are afraid that somebody's going to come along and take our jobs. Uh,
Idris
it,
Elba.
it
Idris
is.
Elba wants our job.
Well, he probably could do it a lot better than we could. Although
Sadly,
I don't
right.
know, we
Sadly,
we
you
have a
may be right,
certain
but we have a
we have a
certain, I don't know
there's a
what it's
certain
called.
charm about us, a certain folksiness, a
Charm's a good
certain
word.
yeah. Charm is probably as far as we want to go on that one.
Folksy means we're dangerous. Charm, that's something I can live with. Oh, they're charming. I'll say one thing: they charm the boys out of the trees.
Yeah, they charm people left and right. Except we can't charm a program director into giving us a job that pays real money.
Real money out of a real pocket that's attached to a real bank. And it costs you a couple $100,000 a year to get started. But I think that whatever you're doing with your radio station right now, you are just wasting time and putting a dark spot on your resume. Be somebody and do something that's never been done before. And if you have 7 radio stations in your group, it's something I've been harping about for years. Turn one of them into a petri dish, an experimental place where you can try something, put it on the air, and see how it looks after a week and have an opportunity to try new formats. Do talk in the morning, do country at 10 o'clock, do news at noon, do rock and roll at 6 p.m. Try these new things until you find something that really clicks, and the audience will tell you if you're doing it right. And there's your new format. Experiment.
Try try running a talk station where people are allowed to talk. Where you don't have two guys just sitting there, or two women, or two whatevers, just sitting there reading Twitter feeds.
I like that. Good morning, two whatevers here. What are you guys? Whatever.
Whatever,
We
whatever
want
you
to
want
say.
us to be. We're
Yeah.
not. He's Michael, and I'm malleable,
There you go. That's all you need to know.
and we're the two pros from Dover.
Yeah.
Please listen to our show. All right, Mikey, what do you say we hook up again on Wednesday morning?
It'll be a wacky Wednesday without a doubt.
We will. I will endeavor to be on time.
And that time would be 10:10. Remember the time when we're never on the air.
10-10 wins New York. Yeah, that's why we do it. But yeah, we never seem. We should try to see if we can run a consecutive string of days where we get on the air at 10-10.
Okay, let's try it tomorrow.
I don't think we
No,
can do it.
Wednesday.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. You'll be there at 10-10 tomorrow, and there'll be nothing.
So the string is broken.
It's a short piece of string.
The short. You got the short stick. Okay.
It was not enough string to tie around your finger to remind you of what it was that you were trying to forget.
If you had to figure it out right now today, is Aaron Rodgers going to be a Jet?
I still say yes. I still say that he will trade the green of Green Bay for the green of Leon Hess.
And I don't think he has any options right now. I don't think he can go home again. He's fooled with the Packers enough, and they've moved on.
You know, I never say never because, as we've seen, sports has its own personality that lends itself to what you thought would never happen happening.
And keep in mind that the theme of last night's Oscars was not a foreign film. Scores heavily. By the way, there was more than one. It wasn't just Everything Everywhere, but All Quiet on the Western Front was shot entirely in German and was a top competitor in several categories. But what we have is uh, a, a set of beliefs that worked for all those people, and their belief was a very simple one: don't give up on your dream. You
Yeah.
can't give up on your dream. It's not. It's just a dream if you give up on it. It can be reality if you don't. So let that take us into the next 10-2 job opening in Seattle.
Well, wasn't one of my favorite, if not my favorite line that Springsteen has ever written is a dream a lie if it doesn't come true, or is it something worse?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. As always, Bruce wisely makes it a question instead of a statement to let the listener come to their own conclusions.
Exactly. That's great writing when you let people, when you get people to think
Because
for
you're not
themselves about
saying,
your
yeah,
lyrics.
you're not saying it stinks. You're saying it could stink if this happened,
Right.
and it might happen. It could
If
happen.
if the dream is done, well, you know, then you
Got
have
to
to
go to
deal with
Got to
that.
go to Lucky Town and look for a girlfriend.
Well, you know, Lucky Town is just another dating site, I think. All
Come
right,
on
Mikey.
down to Lucky Town. Down to
Down to
Lucky Town.
Lucky Town. All right, man. I will catch up with you on Wednesday morning if the Lord's willing the creek don't rise.
Have a good one, Ben.
All right. Peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby.
What a wine.
Thank you all for listening. Remember to hit subscribe and like on your YouTube channel so that we'll someday enjoy the riches that YouTube may bestow on us in the hundreds of thousands of pennies that they may
They're
send
gonna cut.
us.
They have to pay Sidney Powell first, and then they're gonna pay us. They
Yeah,
promise.
one of these days. All right, Mikey. Peace,
See you
man.
then.